The title of this video: She entered their temple unarmed. She left with their sacred blade. In a land ruled by silence and legend, Rose enters the sacred temple unarmed, seeking the fabled blade said to choose only the worthy. Inside, she faces ancient trials of spirit and memory, revealing a past marked by loss and quiet rebellion. When she earns the blade, the silent order turns against her, fearing change. Rose defies violence with restraint, proving her strength lies not in conquest but in conviction. As she leaves, word spreads, of a girl who bled, not killed, for peace. With the sacred blade at her side, Rose becomes a symbol of a new path, not war, hope. The jungle parted like a curtain before her, leaves slick with dew brushing against her bare arms. Vines coiled like sleeping serpents, thick with age, and the air pulsed with a stillness that was not peace but warning. Rose stepped quietly, each footfall deliberate, as if she could hear the earth's memory hum beneath her soles. Her cloak, once a pale traveler's gray, was stained with dust and sap, the fabric clinging to her with the heat of the long trek. She had no weapon strapped to her back, no blade at her side. That choice alone might already be her death. Before her, the temple of the silent order loomed, carved directly from the bones of a mountain, its obsidian surface veined with faint pulses of light. No doors. No gate. Just a wall of seamless black stone, too smooth for time to have forgotten, too still for nature to reclaim. The jungle ended precisely one pace from its edge. Even the roots refused to grow closer. Rose stopped there, breath calm, eyes fixed forward. Somewhere inside that temple was the sacred blade, the one said to choose its wielder only in the presence of absolute surrender. 1,000 others had come before her, armed with pride, ambition, desperation. None had returned. Not whole. Not at all. But she had come differently. She came unarmed. She carried no vengeance, no gods, no kingdom's command. Only a memory. The wall stirred. At first, it was only a shimmer. Then it rippled, like water under moonlight. A doorway formed not by opening but by vanishing. From the shadows stepped 2 sentinels of the silent order, cloaked in robes the color of void. Their faces were hidden beneath masks of polished bronze, featureless and cold. They said nothing. Rose raised her hand slowly, palms forward, in a universal gesture of peace. No blade. No trick. Just flesh and breath. The sentinels tilted their heads in mirrored motion, as if curious. Then they stepped aside. She entered. Inside, the temple swallowed all sound. Her footsteps fell without echo, her breath vanished into the stillness. The walls rose in impossible curves, architecture both ancient and alien, crafted not for mortals but for something greater. Carvings moved as if alive, shifting to follow her, patterns rewriting themselves as she passed. The air thrummed with energy. She felt her heartbeat slow, matching a rhythm beneath the stone. Deeper in, light bloomed from no source, soft, amber, and living. It guided her like a thread pulled through darkness. She followed without question. She knew better than to expect a map. At a hall lined with statues, she stopped. Each figure was armored, towering, regal, some with blades, others with staffs or chains. But all bore the same featureless bronze masks as the sentinels outside. They stared ahead, unmoving. Yet she could feel their scrutiny like heat on her skin. One of the statues, third from the left, was cracked across the chest, as though once struck by something too powerful to resist. Rose placed her hand against the fractured stone. Warmth. A whisper. To enter unarmed is not to be harmless. She pulled her hand back. The hall dimmed. The passage behind her sealed with a soft hiss. There was no going back. She continued forward. The chamber she stepped into next was circular, its ceiling lost in shadows. In the center stood a pool of still water, black as pitch, perfectly smooth. Symbols hovered above it, glowing with faint violet light, drifting slowly like leaves on wind. The moment she stepped near, the pool rippled and cleared. Her reflection stared up at her, not just as she was now, but as she had been, a child weeping beneath a burning sky, a teen holding a dying rebel's hand, a woman covered in blood not her own. Each memory flared briefly in the water before vanishing. They offered no judgment, only truth. Then came a voice, not spoken aloud, but placed directly into her mind. "Why do you seek the blade?" Rose did not answer. Not with words. Her silence was not defiance, but offering. Another image surfaced, her sister, pale and still, arms wrapped around two children she'd died protecting. A face caught forever between fear and love. Rose's eyes burned, but no tears came. The light above the pool flared. The water turned gold. The chamber shifted. Without warning, she stood in a corridor that had not been there a heartbeat ago. The walls breathed. The air carried a scent of iron and wildflowers. The floor felt warm beneath her steps. And she was no longer alone. Ahead stood a figure, tall, robed, their mask etched with faint silver lines. Different from the sentinels. This one radiated purpose. Power. They raised a hand, and from the space between them, something began to form. Not a weapon. A gate. Beyond it, a faint glow, pale and steady. The blade. Rose moved forward. The masked figure did not stop her. Her heart beat once. And the gate dissolved. Behind it, floating above a pedestal carved with 1,000 unreadable runes, hovered the sacred blade. It was not ornate. It did not gleam. It looked simple, weathered, honest. But it called to her. Not to wield. Not to conquer. To carry. She stepped forward. She did not reach for it yet. She stood before it, unarmed still, and waited. Let it choose. Let it know her. Let it see she had come not to take, but to be taken. The light pulsed once. The blade turned. Just slightly. Toward her. Behind her, the masked figure knelt. And the temple, which had for centuries offered only silence, finally spoke. "You may proceed." Asked ChatGPT. The blade did not fall into her hand. It floated downward with grace, its weightless descent like a falling petal. Rose extended her palm, fingers trembling only slightly, and it settled there with a warmth that surprised her. It was not metal. Or if it was, it had forgotten how to be cold. The hilt was wrapped in aged leather, worn smooth by ancient hands. She did not feel power course through her. She felt seen. A low hum bloomed in the chamber, not sound, but sensation. A vibration that passed through bone and marrow. The walls shimmered, runes flaring to life. The masked figure who had watched her from the gate remained kneeling, unmoving. But the pedestal cracked down the middle with a soft groan, and the light in the room shifted, less golden, more gray. The moment of peace was over. She had taken what no one was meant to survive. The temple adjusted around her. Walls folded. Floors reconfigured. The path before her lengthened into a corridor she did not remember crossing. At the far end, 2 bronze-masked sentinels awaited. But they were different from the ones outside. Taller, leaner, their robes stitched with dark red thread. They held no weapons, yet their presence prickled her skin. One stepped forward. It has not chosen in 300 years. Rose gripped the blade more firmly. It has now. Then we must know why. Before she could speak, the air rippled again. The corridor peeled open sideways into a chamber of illusions. No walls, no ceiling, only endless space and the sound of wind, though there was no breeze. Images formed around her, vast and flickering, drawn from memory. Her memory. The village where she was born, a hillside of sunflowers and ash. A father's back turned as he walked away. Her sister, Lyra, younger, brighter, begging her not to leave for the rebellion. Then fire, everywhere, screams lost to smoke. That old battlefield. The flag burning. Her own voice crying out names already forgotten. The sentinels watched her, saying nothing. This was no test. This was a reveal. And then, Lyra again. Not as a memory, but as a vision, cloaked in white, standing beside a crumbling bridge. She looked older than she had ever lived to be, her expression sorrowful. "You still carry it," the vision whispered. "All of it." Rose staggered back. "You're not real. I don't have to be. You brought me." Around them, the temple twisted. The bridge behind the vision cracked and fell into endless black. Wind howled. The sentinels faded. All that remained was Rose, the blade, and the ghost of a girl she had failed to save. "You think this weapon will give you peace?" the vision asked. "No," Rose said, voice hard. But it might give others what you never had, protection. You said that before, the vision whispered. Before you lost everything. I'm not here to fight. Then why are you armed? The blade in her hand pulsed, dimly, as if uncertain. Rose fell to one knee, breath shallow, the vision's weight pressing down. Because they won't listen. Not until they fear me. Not until they know I've walked through gods and flame to get here. The vision softened. Then give them a reason to believe in more than fear. She raised her eyes. The illusion collapsed. The wind stopped. The chamber sealed into stone again. The sentinels were gone. In their place stood a woman clad in deep blue robes, her face uncovered. She was older than Rose by decades, but her bearing was regal, timeless. Her eyes were pale silver, her hair woven into intricate braids laced with thread of gold. The High Priestess of the Silent Order. You speak to shadows as if they answer, the priestess said. They do, Rose replied. You built this temple to test the soul, not just the flesh. The woman tilted her head, studying her like a puzzle with one missing piece. We have guarded the blade for centuries. All who came before you sought power. You seek something worse, meaning. Meaning built your temple, Rose countered. Not war. And yet you hold a weapon. I hold memory. And choice. Silence. Then the priestess moved closer, circling Rose, eyes flicking toward the blade. You want to take it beyond our walls. Are you prepared for what that means? I was prepared the moment I walked in without a sword. The priestess stopped. Her gaze softened, but it did not lose its weight. You do not belong to the Order. No. But I do belong to the world that suffers outside. The blade shimmered, ever so slightly. The priestess raised her hand, and the ground beneath them rumbled. From the floor rose a circle of light, casting runes outward in ripples. She stepped back. Then walk forward. If the blade follows, you have earned it not through trials, but through truth. Rose stepped into the circle. The runes flared. The blade floated from her hand. For a single breath, it hung in the air between them, uncertain. Then it returned to her. The priestess bowed her head. It has chosen. Not just you, but the path you carry. The chamber darkened again. From behind the shadows, more sentinels emerged. This time, armed. And not all of them were kneeling. Ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT said. The first blade came without warning, a shimmer of steel drawn from a robe's fold, aimed cleanly for her throat. Rose twisted sideways, the sacred blade rising instinctively, not in defense, but as if responding to the strike on its own. Metal met light. The assassin's weapon shattered with a resonant hum that echoed through the chamber like a bell tolling the end of peace. She stumbled back, eyes scanning the circle of sentinels that had emerged. No longer silent guardians. Warriors now. Their faces hidden, their intent unveiled. Not a ceremony. An execution. The high priestess did not move. Her eyes betrayed no surprise. You lied, Rose said, blade steady in her grip. The priestess's voice was calm, almost gentle. No. I withheld. The blade must not only be earned. It must be kept. Another attacker lunged, this one heavier, faster. Rose ducked low, letting momentum pass above her, then spun and struck. The sacred blade didn't cut, it released. A burst of force pushed the man back against the far wall, unconscious before he hit the floor. The blade didn't kill unless she willed it. That terrified her more than if it had. Around her, the ring tightened. They won't stop, the priestess said, not as threat, but fact. They are bound by centuries of oath. You were never meant to leave this place with it. Then why let me in at all? To see if you would choose power or purpose. Now we see how deeply your choice holds. Rose's breath came faster now. She shifted her stance, grounding herself, feeling the hum of the temple through her bones. The blade responded again, not as a tool but as an extension of her thought, her will. It arced in her hand like liquid lightning, deflecting another strike. She fought without killing, each movement precise, each decision sharpened by restraint. But restraint had limits. The third wave came together, 3 sentinels moving as one, coordinated and brutal. She faltered under their combined strength. A knee to her ribs, a slash across her shoulder, blocked just in time. She fell to one knee, the floor beneath her sparking as the blade struck stone. The wound bled warm, real. She was not invincible. Above her, the priestess watched. And in that moment, something changed. Rose looked past the sentinels, past her pain. She looked into the face of one attacker, and saw not rage, but fear. Not of her, of what she meant. The blade had not just chosen her. It had rejected them. She stood slowly, ignoring the ache in her limbs. The sacred blade flared with sudden intensity. She raised it, not to strike, but to speak. "I didn't come here to conquer you," she said, voice ringing across the chamber. "I came to end the war outside your walls. But you've locked yourselves inside your legend." No one moved. She turned the blade toward herself, pressing the flat edge to her chest. "If you truly believe only death proves worth, then take it. Kill me now. If I fall, the blade falls with me." The air thickened. The hum deepened into silence. And then, one by one, the sentinels lowered their weapons. The priestess stepped forward, eyes narrowed, not with anger, but revelation. "You chose to bleed before you chose to strike," she said softly. "The blade saw that before we did." Rose didn't lower the weapon. "Then why this trial?" "To be certain. The blade listens to the soul. But the order listens to fear." She gestured, and the remaining guards stepped back. The tension snapped like a thread. Rose let the blade fall to her side, the glow dimming. Her muscles trembled from effort and restraint. Sweat ran into her wounds. And still she stood. The priestess looked upon her with something unfamiliar, regret, perhaps, or awe. "You've reminded us," she said, "what it means to be chosen." "I didn't come here to remind you," Rose replied. "I came because no one else would." A long silence followed. Then, a door at the far end of the chamber, one Rose had not seen, opened slowly, sunlight pouring in like a divine answer. The jungle waited beyond. Her path, at last, clear. But the blade in her hand had changed. It no longer pulsed with light. It simply existed, real and quiet, as if it had nothing left to prove. Rose looked back once, at the masked faces, at the silent walls that had nearly killed her, at the priestess who had tested her truth. "I'm not your warrior," she said. "No," the priestess answered. "You're something we forgot to believe in." With the blade at her side and the blood of her vow still warm on her skin, Rose walked into the light. The temple did not stop her. ChatGPT said. The jungle air felt different on the way out, less oppressive, more alive. Birds sang where there had been only silence. The roots that once curled away from the temple's edge now stretched slightly forward, as though daring to reclaim their place. Rose stepped beyond the obsidian threshold with the sacred blade bound across her back, its warmth pressed gently to her spine. Behind her, the temple was still. No chase. No call. Just stillness, heavy with acceptance. She did not look back. Every part of her ached, not just from battle, but from everything she'd held together in silence. The bruises, the broken skin, the weight of memory, it all pulsed in rhythm with her breath. Yet it wasn't pain that kept her moving. It was purpose. The blade had not made her strong. It had reminded her of the strength she had refused to abandon. The high canopy opened above her as she reached the ridge. From here, the land stretched for miles, mountains blurred in mist, forests dark with secrets, and in the far distance, the glint of metal. A camp. Or perhaps a war front. She knew the flags even from here. Red banners, flame-shaped, fluttering over the army of the Dominion. They were closing in. Beneath those banners marched the men who had destroyed her village, who had buried her sister under rubble and silence. And beyond them were cities who feared resistance more than tyranny. She had once tried to fight them with words. That had ended in prisons. Then she had tried with rebellion. That had ended in ashes. Now she had the blade. But she had no army. A breeze curled over the ridge, brushing her hair across her face. She sat on a boulder, drawing the blade into her lap. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat at rest. She stared at it, remembering the priestess's final words. "You're something we forgot to believe in." That wasn't comfort. It was responsibility. Below, in the valley's shadow, movement stirred. A figure was approaching, a traveler, cautious but purposeful. A girl, no older than Rose had been when she first fled her burning home. She wore a ragged scarf and clutched a rusted farming tool like a weapon. Her eyes met Rose's with defiance, not fear. "You're her," the girl said. "The one they say walked into the temple and came out with the blade." Rose didn't answer. She didn't need to. "They're saying you're the end of the order," the girl added. "Or it's beginning again. They say you didn't kill anyone." "I bled," Rose replied softly. "That's not the same." The girl took a step forward. "They burned my village last week. My brother didn't make it out. I don't have anything left." Rose stood slowly, the blade sliding back onto her shoulder. "You still have a choice." "To do what?" "Fight them. Alone." "No," Rose said. "Not alone. Not if we stop pretending we need armies to begin something better." The girl's eyes narrowed. She wasn't naive. But she was listening. And then more figures emerged from the tree-line. Dozens. Dirty, tired, armed with nothing but tools, scraps, stories. People who had fled. People who had survived. Word had traveled faster than she imagined. She wasn't alone anymore. Not a myth, not just a whisper. One man stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of a chipped sword. "If you're leading something," he said, "we'll follow. But not if it's just another war." Rose looked at him, then at them all, faces etched by suffering, not thirst for revenge. They didn't want blood. They wanted something that could end blood. She nodded once. "We don't raise this blade for wrath," she said. "We raise it so that one day no one needs to raise anything at all." A quiet murmur passed through the group. Not cheer. Something heavier. Agreement. Resolve. The sun broke through the clouds, casting the ridge in gold. Behind her, the temple remained hidden in shadows, its legacy shifting from guardianship to memory. Ahead, the world waited, not changed, but ready to change. Rose tightened the strap across her back and started walking. The blade didn't shine. It simply followed. "You said